Today, we're going to be talking about the R6 Mark II. Amazing, so we've actually got one boxed up here, so let's open it up. You got a battery, cable, manual. Who looks at the manuals anymore? Why are they in there? That's the real question. And you got the camera itself. I do really like Canon boxes. They're just bare essential, aren't they? And they hold everything really well. You haven't got any of those weird cardboard boxes and bits and pieces to it. So, there you go. There it is. That is the R6 Mark II. So, I actually started on a Canon camera. It was the 600D. Canon have always created a very good camera. This is a 24 megapixel full frame sensor. It has got fantastic autofocus. So the autofocus in this camera is good for people, cats, dogs, as well as horses. They've actually introduced new functionality that actually allows it to track birds, cars, motorbikes, trains, and aircraft, which is really good for people that are into doing that kind of photography. This camera has oversampled 4K. This is where it's got a 6K image and then downsampled it to 4K to make sure that 4K is very, very sharp. This actually allows you to have a camera that can be used for like sports as well as weddings and making sure that you capture the moments that you do want to get. It does have a dual SD card slots there. It does have a micro HDMI out and then a USB-C for charging and transferring footage. You got your mic and your headphone ports right there. They have actually put the mic port right at the top. So this makes sure that your mic's never going to be hitting the screen as you turn it around. The ergonomics of the camera is actually really good. It feels very good in the hands, especially if you've got big hands. When it does come to Canon, they are very good with the ergonomics of the camera. They do feel like just right in your hands. And you know, everything is laid out correctly, everything clicks really nicely. So you got a nice little dial there to switch between all your functions. So you got your manual, your auto functions, as well as your aperture priority and shutter priority. Here though, they've actually introduced a switch into the camera to allow you to switch from photo to video. Unlike the R5, where you have to actually go into the settings themselves and change over to video. When it comes to just switching over to photo and video, it's just as simple as that, which is what they did in the DSLRs before, but you know, it's a nice little extra. The camera can shoot mechanically at 12 frames per second, then electronically at 40 frames per second. The camera does shoot HD at 180 frames per second, which allows you to get really smooth slow motion. And then with this camera, you've actually got improved image stabilization then as well. So ultimately, who's this camera for? This camera is pretty much good for any kind of creative, anyone that wants to do content creation, wants to have a quick workflow when it comes to color, because the color out of the camera is excellent when it comes to Canon. If you didn't want to have a play with like the C-Log, I mean the C-Log is very easy to work with and you can create some incredibly good looking shots out of it. But when it comes to shooting day to day, this would be great for videographers as well. Of course, you have got a 24 megapixel sensor, so shooting your landscapes, portraits, and everything in between. They make awesome all-round hybrid cameras. They cover pretty much everything that you would ever want. When you think back to the older generation, they have always innovated on the industry. So you had the 5D Mark II, which pretty much started the entire craze when it comes to using a DSLR for video, and then eventually using mirrorless for video. They were actually the first camera company to actually introduce. Shut up! So they've always been good at creating what's next for the industry. They're now at the point where the cameras have pretty much everything you would ever need to be able to be a business person, a solid creative. It's a great place to start. I mean, the camera itself is probably above the budget for like an entry-level full-frame camera, so it's not necessarily what you would have got out of the 6D before, because of course you got the RP. But the R6 Mark II marks a good kind of like standing off point, so you don't necessarily need to go for the R5, you can go for the R6, and it covers everything you would pretty much need. I mean, a lot of Canon shooters still use the 5D Mark III, the 5D Mark II, and they are excellent cameras. We'll see how well it does. I'm going to probably test this out because I'm a big fan of Canon. I personally shoot Sony. I have done for a very long time, and also a big fan of Sony. I have produced a really good camera here, and it's going to be interesting to see what people do with it. Again, that's my first thoughts when it comes to the R6 Mark II. My name's Stuart, and this is Camera Centre UK. Please like, follow and subscribe if you want to see more.